Okay, so we're back in Moses Maimonides, or the Rambam's Guide of the Perplexed, Moreh and Nevuchim. So we're going to enter a very interesting section right here. The whole book is very interesting. But I mentioned before that I believe, and some people believe, that he was a mystic. And even though that he used rational arguments and things like that, but he centers on very mystical verses and is trying to, it seems to be relaying some things to his student that are very mystical. Now, I didn't read this anywhere. This is something that I gather from this, but we have this idea, the Hamishim Sha'arei Binah, the 50 gates of understanding. And we notice, so there's this teaching that there's 49 levels of sides of impurity and 49 levels of purity to these gates. And you'll notice that the first 50 chapters that he's dealing with trying to get you to understand certain concepts. So there's a misunderstanding of a word in the Torah, and there's an understanding of the word in the Torah. And it's interesting because he starts out right here. It says, "Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation that keepeth faithfulness may enter in." Isaiah 26, verse 2. So there's a couple different connections to the 50 gates of understanding. So Rav Ginsburg, he says that there's 50 times in the Torah that the Exodus from Egypt is mentioned, and there's 50 questions that God asked Job. And the book of Job, or Eov, is a very mystical book in itself. The Bahir, the Bahir by Rabbi Nehunya ben Hakana, one of the earliest Kabbalistic works, is based on a verse in Eov. The whole book is based on one verse in Eov, in the book of Job. And I have that whole book read in another playlist, so check that out. But anyway, so we're getting into this, and I feel that it seems to be clear to me that he's trying to relate to his student some aspects of the Hamishim Sha'arei Binah, the 50 gates of understanding. And there's also some connections to this if you look at the gematria of different things as far as like what is Binah and stuff like that, and you go to chapter 62 and everything like that. And actually what words are used. So at the 50th one, the very first word that he used is da, or knowledge. We think of da'at, but the word there is like da, or knowledge. He says no. And we know that da'at in the Sefirot is between Chokhmah and Binah. And it's like the transitional chapter here between this section of where he's trying to get you to understand that there's understandings of certain words that are pure and impure. And then he goes in and he kind of goes into a different section. So it's very interesting that this stuff is structured the way it is. And this is why some of the highest level mystics studied his book their entire life. Abu Lafia was his favorite book, the Guide for the Perplexed. And if you don't know who Abu Lafia is, look him up and you will immediately be like blown away. All right, anyway, so chapter 1, I read you the opening statement, "Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation that keepeth faithfulness may enter in." Image, tzelem, and likeness, demut. So this chapter deals with image and likeness, just like the verse says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This is a completely a foundational argument against Christianity and against Islam. They say the same thing, that, like we say that God has this image and stuff like that. But we don't. And Christianity takes it too far, and they say that God is a man because it says that we were created in the image and likeness of God. So the whole basis of this chapter is that image, so tzelem does not necessarily mean image, it means pattern, and demut, likeness, doesn't have anything to do with that as well. And that if God was trying to say that we were created after his image, three-dimensional form, that he would have used the word to'ar. And there's no place in the Torah that uses the word to'ar for God. So here we go. Image, or tzelem, and likeness, demut. People have thought that in the Hebrew language, image denotes the shape and configuration of a thing. This supposition led them to the pure doctrine of the corporality of God, on account of his saying, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Genesis 1:26. For they thought that God has man's form, I mean his shape and configuration. The pure doctrine of the corporality of God was a necessary consequence to be accepted by them. So basically, if that's what you hold, then it's only a basic progression that you will believe that God has this form. Okay, so they accordingly believed in it and deemed that if they abandoned this belief, they would give the lie to the biblical text, or be untrue to the biblical text. That they would even make the deity to be nothing at all unless they thought that God was a body provided with a face and a hand, like them in shape and configuration. However, he is, in their view, bigger and more resplendent than they themselves. And the matter of which he is composed is not flesh and blood. As they see it, this is as far as one can go in establishing the separateness of God from other things. Now, with respect to that which ought to be said in order to refute the doctrine of corporality of God, meaning that God has a bodily form, you should know the demonstration of all of this from this treatise. All of this from this treatise, his whole book, right? However, here in this chapter, only an indication is given with a view to elucidating the meaning of image, tselem, and likeness, demut. Now, that's the English translation. I don't appreciate that specific translation of it, but we'll continue with what he says. Now, I say that in the Hebrew language, the proper term designating the form that is well known among the multitude, namely that form which is the shape and configuration of a thing, is toar, and that's tav, right? Tav, what is it? Tav Aleph Resh, I believe, or Tav Ein. I'm sorry. I need to check up on how that's exactly spelled. Okay, thus scripture says beautiful in form, toar, and beautiful in appearance. Genesis 39, verse 6. What form, or toaro, is he of? That's 1 Samuel 28:14. As the form, or toar, of the children of a king. Judges 8:18. This term also applied to an artificial form. Thus, he marketh its form, yita'arehu, with a line, and he marketh its form, yita'arehu, with a compass. And you'll notice that actually is also another mystical verse. And this is Isaiah 44, verse 13. And it's very interesting because that passage in Isaiah 44 is a complete refutation of this idea. Isaiah has this complete refutation of this idea that God is not bodily formed. And it's interesting. Christians, they try in Muslims too, they try and say this, that we somehow, are supposed to believe, or we believe, in the case of Muslims, they say that we believe this, and because we have that verse in Genesis, and then Christians, they say that we should believe this. But basically, that section in Isaiah, it even says, God says, if there's anybody else with me, let them recount what happened in the past, all through the past, the ancient times, and what will happen all in the future. Let them recount it to you, and then you'll know if they can do that, then they're absolutely with me. But if they can't, there's nobody with me. And there's nobody in any of the religions that claim that they were God could do such a thing. And that's our answer. That's one of the answers we have to the Christians, is Isaiah specifically puts this test out. He's bringing a message from God. There's nobody with me, God says. There's nobody with me. And if there was, they should be able to know everything that happened from the past and in the future. And there's nothing in the New Testament that documents that happened. So what do we have? Nobody has come and satisfied that. Nobody has come and satisfied that test. So here we go. Those terms are never applied to the deity. May he be exalted. Far and remote may this thought be from us. The term image, on the other hand, so meaning the word toar, is never, in all of Tanakh, is not used for God. The term image, on the other hand, I think that's the word, that should be the word tselem. On the other hand, is applied to the natural form. I mean to the notion in virtue of a thing is constituted as a substance and becomes what it is, like a pattern. It is the true reality of the thing insofar as the latter is that particular being. In man, that notion is that from which human apprehension derives. It is on account of this intellectual apprehension that is said of man, in the image of God he created him. For this reason also it is said, thou contentest their image. Psalm 73:20. For contempt has for its object the soul, which is the specific form, not the shape and configuration of the parts of the body. I assert also that the reason why idols are called images, or demut, lies in the fact that what was sought in them was the notion that was deemed to subsist in them, and not their shape and configuration. I assert similarly with regard to the scriptural expression, images of your emeralds, 1 Samuel 6:5. No, it doesn't say emeralds. Emeralds, and images being used in order to denote shape and configuration, it would follow that image is an equivocal or ambivalous, meaning doubtful, term applied to the specific form and also to the artificial form, and to what is analogous to the two in the shapes and configurations of the natural bodies. So to even say that, the word demut or likeness is applied to God in a human, that would imply that that the human is the idol of, it's very, that's still not a good argument for Christianity. So whatever, that which was meant in the scripture, what I'm saying is because the word demut is used in reference to all the idols. So whenever it says the image of something, the image of an idol, it's always using the word demut. So that which was meant in the scriptural dictum, let us make man in our image, has the specific form, which is intellectual apprehension, not the shape and configuration. We have explained to you the difference between image and form and have explained the meaning of image. As for the term likeness, demut, it is a noun derived from the verb damo, to be like, and it too signifies likeness in respect to a notion. For the scriptural dictum, I am like a pelican in the wilderness, Psalms 102 verse 7, does not signify that its author resembled the pelican with regard to its wings and feathers, but that his sadness was like that of the bird. In the same way, in the verse, nor was any tree in the garden of God like unto it in beauty, Ezekiel 31 verse 8, the likeness is with respect to the notion of beauty. Similarly, the verses, their venom is in the likeness of the venom of a serpent, Psalm 58 verse 5, and his likeness is that of a lion that is eager to tear in pieces, Psalms 17 verse 12. These refer both of them to a likeness in respect of a notion and not with respect to a shape and configuration. In the same way, it is said, the likeness of the throne, the likeness of a throne, Ezekiel 126. The likeness refers to being in respect of elevation and sublimity, and not in respect of a throne's square shape, its solidarity, and the length of its legs, as wretched people think. A similar explanation should also be applied to the expression, the likeness of the living creatures, Ezekiel 1:13. Now man possesses, as his proprium, something in him that is very strange, as it is not found in anything else that exists under the sphere of the moon, namely intellectual apprehension. In the exercise of this, no sense, no part of the body, none of the extremities are used, and therefore this apprehension was likened unto the apprehension of the deity, meaning God, which does not require an instrument. We don't need arms and legs for that, for like intellect, right? Although in reality it is not like the latter apprehension, but only appears so to the first stirrings of opinion. It was because of this something, because of the divine intellect conjoined with man, that it is said of the latter that he is in the image of God and in his likeness, not that God, may he be exalted, is a body and possesses a shape. So there you go. I think this is a very good chapter. It elucidates these terms very well. And you can go on, check those references, and gain a full understanding of this. So just to recap, it's just, I think that he's trying to set forth clear definitions, pure definitions, and impure definitions, just like the Hamishim Sha'arei Binah, the 50 gates of understanding, have sides of impurity and sides of purity. So this is what it is. This is the Rambam's take on it. That's my opinion of his first 50 chapters. So thank you for listening. Join me for the next chapter.